Now we're going to hear from our second panel, Translation in Academics and Research, moderated by Dr. Guillermo Reyes from the Department of Hispanic Studies.
Thank you everyone for coming. As they said, Guillermo de los Reyes. I'm a associate professor in the Hispanic Studies Department, where I serve as a department chair. And I'm joining today by colleagues from the Hispanic Studies Department and the Modern and Classical Languages Department, that are the two departments on campus that offer, the only departments that offer multilingual courses and degrees. So please come to talk to us after if you want to do a major or minor in many of the languages that we offer in these two departments. But I won't be talking today. They will be the ones doing the talking, even though I love talking. And first, I'll introduce them, and then I will ask a couple of questions. First, to my right, Dr. Julio Cesar Lopez Otero, who is an assistant professor in the Hispanic Studies Department, where he also serves as the director of the Spanish Heritage Language Program. He received his PhD in bilingualism and second language acquisition from Broadcast University, MA in Hispanic Linguistics for Purdue University, and a BA in Translation and Interpretation from the Universidad Pablo de Olavide in Sevilla, España. His research focuses on the acquisition and maintenance of Spanish grammar among different types of bilinguals. His work has been published in journals such as Languages, International Journal of Bilingualism, Heritage Language Journal, Second Language Research, among others, and his research discusses Spanish, Portuguese, and English, and many other languages. To my left is my colleague, Dr. Mohan Ambikaipakar, who is the director of the Class Honors Program and also associate professor in the World Cultures and Literatures Program in the Modern Classical Languages Department. He's the author of Political Blackness in Multiracial Britain by the University of Pennsylvania Press, a very good university. I went there, actually. He has also published in journals such as Ethnic and Racial Studies, Postcolonial Studies, Communications, among others. His research and teaching is comprised of three strands, the UK, the US, and Malaysia, and engages comparative research in theorizing connections between liberal democratic political systems and the interlocking production of differential forms of racism. Welcome, colleagues, and the conversation today will be about how does multilingualism, multiculturalism influence the research. And I will ask Dr. Lopez Otero, how multilingualism is relevant to your research or teaching?
Of course. Bilingualism, multilingualism is everything I do in terms of research. And I want to say it's because I grew up bilingual. I was born and raised in Spain to a Brazilian mother and Spanish father. And like many bilinguals in the US who grow up in a bilingual household, their minority, their heritage language is usually frowned upon by society. Usually we are ashamed to even say that we are native speakers of said language, because when we go back to our second countries, family countries, sometimes our cousins, our neighbors, like this whole story of the Yo no sabo kid, or they may notice you have a foreign accent. So yeah, but when we just get rid of all this mess around bilingualism, we know that one bilingual is not two monolinguals in one, that bilingualism takes many different shapes, and that is something that I learned throughout my studies and that motivated me to keep studying bilingualism, multilingualism, and now Spanish in the US, and how Spanish in the US changes depending on how spoken it is, how frequently it is spoken in the families or not, and that all forms of Spanish are valid, which is something that even we Spanish speakers in the US sometimes have difficulties understanding, and not shaming other speakers. So that is something that is crucial in my role as the director of the Spanish Heritage Language Program. And we encourage all the students, regardless of how proficient you may be in Spanish, just come talk to us. There are many ways that you can place into a level or another, and clearly our courses are tailored for you guys. We focus on what you need as opposed to, second language courses, which clearly have a different approach to language learning. So yeah, we are the only two departments that offer foreign language, if you want to say that Spanish is a foreign language. We also, we offer courses that are tailored to the Hispanic Spanish-speaking community here in Houston. And after that, we also offer courses in translation and minors in translation, related to what the previous panel was discussing. So yeah, plenty of opportunities, to start your careers in bilingualism, multilingualism, translation, interpretation here at the University of Houston with us.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Lopez Otero. Dr. Ambike Packer, the same question, and we have a different perspective from his research. So could you please illuminate us?
Thank you. I do want to make a plug for my program. So Hannah Guerrero, who you just heard, is a major in the World Cultures and Literature program in studies in global modernity, and it is a good example of a different kind of angle to the question of the relevance of language, in our world. Of course, acquiring language, having multilingual abilities have been shown to be incredible assets in careers. But the kinds of things that I study are not very nice. They tend to be the more conflict-ridden questions around language, race, and nationhood. And these are very vexed questions that are requiring a lot of people to be engaged in order to have sort of like solutions that can be better than the ones that we have today. So I don't know if people have heard of this term language death, but most scholars and experts agree that within our lifetime we will probably see the loss about half the languages that are spoken in the world today. We have about roughly 7,000, and about half of them will disappear, right? And there are multiple reasons why these languages disappear, and the cost of the disappearance is incalculable in many different regards, especially in terms of knowledge and epistemology, because every language has a system by which it makes sense of the world, and so we lose access to that system of knowledge, right, when we lose it. Unfortunately, we have politics around the question of nationhood and nation building that is quite hostile to the preservation and speaking of languages. So in my context, I'm an ethnic minority from the country of Malaysia. Starting in the colonial period, that with colonial British policies, there was very active push and pull factors to try to get people to become anglicized, right, on the one hand. And then in the post-colonial period, after Malaysia becomes independent, then a majoritarian language, Malay, was selected to be the official language. And the idea of a nation, unfortunately, is still predicated on what we call a Westphalian model, which is a kind of a European, Germanic heritage model that has been, in a sense, replicated the world over and is part of our global system of nation states today, presupposes that peoplehood is defined by one language, one race, one nation. And nation states are very aggressively trying to make themselves cohere as this one language, one people, one race. And we can obviously see the echoes of those kinds of politics even here in the United States, and why there's antagonisms against languages, right? Above and against the kinds of benefits we accrue by having the epistemologies and knowledge systems that come to us as a legacy or as a benefit of having multiple language systems, in our ecology, as it were.
Thank you. That's actually a very important point. I personally grew up in Mexico, south of the border, where during the 80s and 90s, all the languages, the native languages, Maya, many of Maya Tzotzil, they were repressed. I'm very proud of Spanish, right? When in Spain, there are like 5 different official languages, and here in the U.S., Spanish becomes a minority language. And I always say that I speak many dialects of Spanish, because talking about my multiculturalism, the importance, the different words and the different approaches. And one question that probably the students might ask is, what ways does being multilingual, multicultural, contributes to professional, or in this case, academic success?
So I work with people, so I always think of people when it comes to careers and opportunities. So for example, for us in Spanish, we have collaborations with the Department of Education, careers, any field in bilingual education, which is on the rise, not only in Texas, but in the country overall. Also to serve people with communication disorders, we can help our bilingual community. What other collaborations do? All the minors that we offer. Yeah, we offer minors in Spanish for the professions, which include legal Spanish, medical Spanish. So basically, in every career in which a student would eventually interact with people. People are diverse, and in Houston, in Texas, people are diverse, particularly when it comes to speaking Spanish. So yeah, speaking Spanish can definitely add a differential when it comes to securing a job.
What about? I mean, what do you think why is important to understand, especially relevant to your research, to be aware of the impact of languages or bilingualism or monolingualism in some cases, right? Why is that important?
Yeah, I'm going back to perhaps one way I can illustrate this is the example of Mexico and the indigenous languages. So I will kind of toot my horn over here, but the elementary school textbooks in Celtal, which is an indigenous language from the Chiapas region of Mexico, was written on my dining table. And I'm very proud of that, because I was part of a movement that Enlace Civil that was in support of the Zapatista rebellions in Mexico. And so when I was at the University of Texas, Austin, as a graduate student, we actually hosted a number of native speakers, educators, and also linguists who were in solidarity to them to write the first grammar of Celtal and to produce the first elementary textbooks that will actually be used in one of the haciendas that were appropriated in the revolution and turned over to be a elementary school building. So, one family had one hacienda. I don't know if you know like how these things were divided, but the big families in Chiapas would demarcate land like from this mountaintop to that mountaintop. That was my family's, that mountaintop to that mountaintop, and on top of each mountaintop there was a hacienda. Well, the rebels controlled about 1/3 of Chiapas. And so the hacienda that was in their control became a school. So it's amazing when you look at all of these big mansions, what they could become if there was a revolution. You get lots of universities and classes. But, and a lot more people could use these buildings, right? But, it has been an incredible, I think, we can call it a question of language justice, but I think we also can think about it in terms of a universal benefit. I think the sustaining of Celtal is going to be something that enriches, our common humanity. I had a colleague, anthropology colleague, who went to my home country of Malaysia to document the ways in which certain indigenous rainforest tribes and their languages, classified and thought about plants, right? So that language had an epistemology about botany that was not found in Arabic or Latin or any other language. And as an anthropologist, it was very important for him to be able to document that. So I think that when, it's not just a partisanal thing or an ethnic thing. I think when we think of languages as being repositories of knowledge that are beneficial to human beings at large, then supporting CELTAL is a common mission.
Indeed, thank you. We need to wrap this up because of time. There are other panels, but as you know, please come to talk to us about our majors and minors. There are faculty also, there are students here that you can ask about what we do in the Hispanic Studies Department and the Mother Language Departments about the multilingual advantage. Thank you very much. Thank you to my colleagues, and join me too. Thank you.